Collins here with Geoff Lemon. This is the final word for all our cricket, powered by Kookaburra Cricket at the end of a summer which has gone from disaster to renewal and everything in between, Geoff. The Australian side finishing on a high in Sydney.
That's right, disaster to opportunity, and that opportunity was seized in the Pakistan series. By Sydney, it was a bit of a frolic, really. I mean, things were terrible in Hobart a couple of months ago. Sydney, it was like, let's see how many records we can set. David Warner, century in a session before lunch on the first day, fastest Australian 50 in the second innings. Didn't care.
Yeah, that century in a session before lunch, only the fifth to do it in the history of the game. The previous came 40 years ago. The first one in Australia. A couple of pretty handy blokes in Bradman and Trumper, the two Australians who've done it, who have stands named after them at the SCG. Could David Warner have a stand named after him at the MCG one day?
Maybe a handstand. We could incorporate that into the century celebrations if someone sponsored that. I don't know, some sort of upside down company. Mr. Squiggle could get involved. Look, we're just throwing things out there. Dave, think about it. That's all I'm saying. I hope he does. I hope he gets 40 test hundreds and he may be on track to do that.
Now, Matthew Renshaw, his opening partner, who was one of those brought into the side after that disaster at Hobart a couple of months ago, he made his breakthrough maiden 184 all told on day one. It was an innings of patience and control, batting with Warner early on before hitting the accelerator later on. He really is a player who England fans watching there will look forward to seeing in the Ashes next summer.
Yeah, can't wait to see him line up at the Gabba next summer, which I'm sure he will. But between now and then, there's the tricky part of an India tour coming up, probably a Bangladesh tour after that, 6 subcontinent tests. Do they take him? Does he have the game? Am I asking rhetorical questions?
All those things are true. Peter Hanscom, not so many rhetorical questions about his future. He's an absolute lock for India, a man with plenty of subcontinental experience. Made his second 100 in the space of 4 test matches, yet to be dismissed for less than 50. A doddle for him. He was in complete cruise control from the moment he walked out to the crease.
Yes, the man known as Panscom. Well, that's what I call him anyway, because I like it. He's 99.75, his test average at the moment. Not too bad. 6 test matches. I mean, it definitely can't go down from here, can it?
And completely stitched up too. He was one run short of having 400 runs and averaging an even 100, and even Dom Bradman, if you like, before Steve Smith called them in the second innings. It was an insane amount of declaration batting going on there in the second innings. David Warner, as you said, the fastest 50 in Australian Test match history. Usman Khawaja, 79 of the easiest runs you'll make. But what I'll really remember from that is poor old Yasir Shah getting absolutely pounded. 1 for 124, match figures of 2 for 291. For those that saw him in the UK last summer, how the mighty have fallen.
I know. It broke my heart. I was really hoping he'd come out here. Leg spinners potentially are more likely to do well in Australia than off spinners, but visiting spinners, all told, have almost all struggled, with a couple of notable exceptions in history. So hopefully he learns from it. He seems pretty resilient. I reckon he'll get back to bowling well on some other surfaces around the world, and maybe we'll see him again in a better incarnation in future.
One Pakistani who did show resilience was the ever-reliable Yunus Khan, who brought up his 34th Test 100 and came perilously close to registering 10,000 Test runs at the SCG as well, but a fine century all the same.
A beautiful 175 not out. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs, that was the nature. It was a Kipling 100. He just kept going on. He was undismissed at the end. He's got 34 Test tons, only 5 players ahead of him in history on the ton-making list. He's the lowest profile, let's say. That's probably the easiest way to say that, of the lot. But by God, he's making hundreds faster than any of them in terms of Test matches played. Absolute gun.
Now, as you said, it's the end of the 6 Test matches played this summer, and it has been a bit of a roller coaster affair. But to think that we were at the start of the summer watching an Australian side with, say, Adam Voges in it and Callum Ferguson at one point and Joe Mennie, it feels a world away. Yeah,
it really does, particularly Voges, going in with the second best average behind Bradman in Test cricket. It was safe to say that he won't play again. Looked a fixture and then suddenly couldn't find a run. I suppose that, when you've got that level of apparent crises resolve quickly in sport, don't they? Crisis, it's all over. We were kind of buying into that and kind of not, because it was kind of ridiculous at the time. It takes one good Test match in Adelaide and suddenly the future is rosy and all will be well forever. Yeah,
the Test match in Adelaide was the catalyst for all this. Usman Khawaja, his best 100 to date for Australia. Stephen Smith back in some nick there as well after doing the hard yards in Tasmania. Stephen Smith, of course, making 200s thereafter. As the Australian captain, the bar is higher for him now, leading into India and England thereafter, but he keeps making runs, and that's the defining characteristic of this bloke.
Yeah, averaging over 60 now for his career, 18 Test hundreds, just absolutely piling them on, making one every 2.8 Test matches, if you don't mind. 3rd best in history behind Bradman and George Headley.
And Warner not far behind him, really, there with 18 Test tons as well in just 60 Test matches, so just a bit over 1 in every 3 Tests for Warner. And then look at the fast bowlers. They're the ones you could really set and forget this year. It was Mitchell Starc and Josh Hazlewood. Let's focus on the latter first. Hazlewood has become not the attack leader, but somehow the most important bowler in this side. He averaged with an economy rate through the summer of 1.99, which gives you a sense of the stranglehold he has on opposing batsmen. Picked up 7 wickets at Sydney. You could have made a case for him being man of the match.
Yeah, Golden Brown should be his theme song, The Stranglers. Gave nothing away, went at less than 2 runs per over across the Test match summer. And if you can't score against him, you're going to find it harder to, you'll take more risks against other bowlers, and he just kept getting the rewards.
Into the spin department, Nathan Lyon and Stephen O'Keefe for Australia's incumbents, if you like, going into the Indian tour. But Lyon nearly lost his place on multiple occasions during the summer before fighting back really well in Melbourne and Sydney.
Yeah, I reckon there were about 4 Test matches where he was, very, very shaky, just before or towards the end of the final, the match beforehand. But he managed to keep his head up and kept coming in. And he kept his composure through that Sydney Test match, took some important wickets there, really was probably an underrated key to the win in Melbourne as well. So he'll have to go to India because he's the most experienced spinner, but I don't think he's going to have a very good time.
Let's shuffle from red ball to white. The one-day series against Pakistan, 5 limited overs internationals, commencing tomorrow at Brisbane at the Gabba ground. Linsanity will be part of your diet for the second half of the Australian summer. Chris Lynn, he's such a prolific force at 2020 level. Jeff, can he convert that through? He's going to bat number 4 tomorrow, we're told. We just got some breaking news in on the phone before we started. Chris Lynn batting number 4 at the Gabba for Australia. It all mixes together for an exciting afternoon.
Yeah, I guess I'm just a bit anxious that, how he'll try to approach it. If he's coming in the 15th or 20th over, does he go, oh, well, I've got to play a long innings now and be responsible and, be sensible, or does he come in McCullum style and say, I am going to do exactly the same thing that has worked for me before, and I do not care. I hope he does the latter.
Likewise, and Travis Head and Glenn Maxwell, another man who's known for those kind of theatrics. He's going to bat at number 6 with Head at the top of the order, left Usman Khawaja out. So that's kind of interesting as well. They're looking to the future, maybe possibly there with Head, trying to give him a dual purpose in the side, not just a lower order accumulator, but also someone who can do the job in the first 15.
I guess it's probably taking an opportunity to see what he can do. They've seen that he can deliver in the middle order. They know his ability to build an innings there, but maybe you want to have multiple strings to your bow for a one-day team. You want to be able to mix it up depending on the opponent, the conditions, and the tournament that you're in. So the more things they can try out, this is an ideal testing phase.
Yeah, and an ideal time to do it as well, leading into the ICC Champions Trophy, of course, in England next summer. So I can understand why they're trying to bed down this squad and try a few things out. Billy Stanlake, the fast bowler, is the proverbial bolter in this squad, and we've also seen Aaron Finch and George Bailey make way, 2 mainstays of this one-day side. We're going to find it pretty hard to find their way back in now with limited 50-over cricket between now and the Champions Trophy. Yeah,
George Bailey's an unfashionable cricketer, but he's like a daggy old hat. He's very serviceable. He did a job. He always did a job. I'm sad to see him go. No more Bailey time, but you never know. These things change quickly. He could be back if the middle order falls apart.
5 one-days against Pakistan, as we said, starting tomorrow. We'll be back next week to tell you all about those. Adam Collins and Geoff Lemon, this is the final word for all that cricket and Kookaburra cricket.
I'm Peter Hanscom, and my Kooka moment was my BBL 100 against the Perth Scorchers for the Melbourne Stars at the MCG. I was batting number 4 for the Melbourne Stars. We were in a bit of trouble early. I think Luke Wright and Kevin Peterson both out within the first over and a half, so I was in facing hat-trick ball, which wasn't great. Got wrapped on the pads and luckily was given not out, and from then it was sort of my night. The ball was falling into the gaps nicely when I mishit it, and then when I did middle it, it was lucky enough that it was going over the fence. Got the cooker out there, it was pretty amazing. Gave it a nice big wave to about the 33,000 people that were there, and I don't think there'll be a better moment in a short career so far.